Before I begin reading from the Lankavatara Sutra, I suppose I should really say something about it and why I've chosen this particular text. Now, according to Professor Suzuki, whose translation I'm using, it's quite a rambling text, and it seems to have been added to and altered over the centuries. But he reckons the bulk of it was written before 500 AD. And it's a record of a dialogue between the Buddha and somebody called Mahamati. And it took place on the island of Lanka, which is commonly assumed to be the island of Sri Lanka. And this was the text which a monk called Bodhidharma, who came from the south of India and went to China. This was the text that Bodhidharma used. It was the only text he used. Now, why it was the only text, who knows? Perhaps it was the only text he had at the time, or perhaps it was the only one he thought was worthwhile. There were certainly many Buddhist texts around at this point. Bodhidharma, just as a point of interest, is also associated with the famous Shaolin monastery, which I think is in central China. This is the famous martial arts monastery. So that aside, Bodhidharma is quite a seminal figure. Now, I'm not actually going to begin reading this text from the beginning. I'm actually going to be reading only the last section, which is called the verse summary, the Sagatakam. It's called a verse summary, and I'll put the text that I'm reading in the comments box below the video. It will also be available in the video index. I'm just going to read out what Professor Suzuki says about this Sagatakam. He's got a companion volume to the Lankavatara Sutra called Studies in the Lankavatara Sutra. So it's composed entirely of verses, and it's about a quarter the size of the whole text. Some of the verses are actually just taken straight from the main body of the text. So as for the contents and their arrangement, there is utter chaos in the Sagatakam. No doubt they chiefly concern the same themes as treated in the main text, but there are also some original theses, and it is often hard to see why and how they came to be thrown in here. To read the Sagatakam properly, therefore, it must be cut up into so many small portions, sometimes taking just one solitary sloka, that's a line, as expressing a complete idea, i.e. as a sort of aphorism. When this cutting up process is brought to an end, we see that the Sagatakam, which appears on the surface as one solid chain of gathas, that's verses, is nothing but a heap of rubbish and gems. So it sounds like Professor Suzuki is a little bit frustrated by it, and I haven't actually read it myself. So it's going to be a journey of exploration for me as well, and just how much rubbish there is and how many gems there are, we'll find out for ourselves. So let's begin. The Sagatakam. Listen to the wonderful Mahayana doctrine declared in this Lankavatara Sutra, composed into verse gems and destroying a net of the philosophical views. So this is a little preamble verse. It's called a Mahayana doctrine. Now I'm going to put this in very basic terms. Mahayana means the great vehicle or the great way, and it's contrasted with what's called the Hinayana or the lesser vehicle. There's a lot that can be said about these two terms, but I'm going to keep it very basic. They really apply to two understandings of what spirituality is about. One understanding is that spirituality is about purifying the mind, which often entails also purifying the body. And you need to do this before you reach enlightenment. The Mahayana, on the other hand, doesn't go in for that so much. In fact, it's often directly opposed to all of that. It's more concerned with direct insight, with direct revelation. And this is what I would refer to as wisdom. It's concerned with wisdom, the transcendental wisdom that was mentioned in the previous video. So this is what the Mahayana is concerned with. Zen arose from the Mahayana, and it's concerned with immediate realization. And it's concerned here with destroying a net of the philosophical views. I would call this the net of philosophical views, because transcendental vision or wisdom has got nothing to do with philosophy. And in fact, if you adhere to any philosophy whatsoever, then you're not abiding in transcendental wisdom. Now, some Buddhists would say there are right philosophical views and there are wrong philosophical views. I'll stress, transcendental wisdom has got absolutely nothing to do with any kind of philosophical views, right or wrong. Now you might think, well, what philosophical views do you have? Well, the main philosophical view, which you probably hold yourself, which most Buddhists would probably hold, is that you're an individual. And there's a world out there, a world that you're interacting with, a world that you're perceiving. This is a philosophical view. This is the net that traps us in what in the previous video was described as the realm of discriminations. We are always discriminating between me and there. So this is the purpose. The purpose of the Mahayana is to attain this wisdom, and it's to attain it directly. And in order to remain in that attainment, we have to destroy the net of philosophical views. So that's the preamble, and we'll proceed with the first few verses in the next video.